I just saw this beautiful light and a figure of a human-like person it looked, but I couldn't see any details. It just was a long, slender, glowing figure. And
describe the feeling that you had when you saw that figure.
I was not afraid. When I stood there before it, it was like we were both there with purpose. I was there to listen and receive, and the being was there to give me what I needed to know. And then the message I received was,
hi, welcome to Beauty from Ashes. I'm Kim. Just want to share a little bit about the podcast and what inspired it. What's our big why? So a couple of us, more than really, have come together and want to share the healing that we've experienced as far as letting go of the past and reframing the experiences that we've had into something that helps us grow and experience life in a way that feels pleasurable, to see ourselves as creators of our lives. And we recognize the value of sharing stories of overcoming that allow people to see that it's possible to shift your perspective. More and more of us are seeing ourselves as creators of our lives rather than victims of it. And it can be very helpful when you're in the midst of a situation to see that other people have overcome hardships as well and become better for it. So I invite you to, if it resonates, to share these videos with others who may benefit from recognizing the power of shifting your mindset and walking beyond the fear of a situation. If any of this appeals to you, please share and subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the episode and gain some positive meaning from it. Thanks for watching.
Well, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here, Linda. So I'll just start us off. So my name is David Lloyd, and I'm one of the founders of the Intersection Foundation that you already know. We've talked some already. And I won't give a lot about my background right now. I'll wait for my story before I do that. So here today, we're here to talk about you and kind of your book and what you've done. But before we jump right in, we'll have Kim introduce herself, and then we'll introduce kind of who you are, and we'll dive into your story. Okay. Looking forward to hearing it.
Okay.
I'm Kim. I'm also part of the Intersection Foundation. Some call me Celeste these days as a result of a spiritual moment of my own, which I'll also share in another session. I'm passionate about this podcast because I love offering people new perspectives on how to see difficult circumstances. And I think it lends itself to loving yourself and others unconditionally when you recognize that everything is working in your favor.
Mm-hmm. All right. Linda, go ahead and tell us a bit about your background and give us who you are first, and we'll dive into your book and all that in a minute.
Okay. My name is Linda Marie Springer. Linda Marie Besserman. Springer is my everyday personal name. Linda Marie Besserman is the name that I have chosen to write my book. It's my pen name, my author name. It kind of honors my roots, and it, for me, was the perfect name to separate out my personal life from my life as an author. I'm excited about being here today, sharing my book, and with the hopes that the people that are listening, hopefully it'll spark a remembrance in their heart and allow them to remember just how powerful they are as human beings in this world. Um, Telling a little bit about myself, I always find that to be kind of challenging because in my lifetime, I have done many things and I have walked quite a few different paths. I have this awareness of my multidimensionality, and I realize that um, my experiences throughout my lifetime, none of them were ever wasted. Where I am today and who I am is because of all the things that I have experienced and I have learned. Um, and I am here now at this point in time to serve, to serve with my knowledge of energy work, such as Reiki, energy medicine, to serve with my skills as a hypnotist and as a writer and an author of spiritual and empowering literature and information. I have recently published my book, Love is Not an Emotion, Love is a Superpower. And in my book, I share my journey, I share my near death experience, and the message that was given to me in this near death experience to share with the people that are ready to hear it.
I am really looking forward to reading that book, actually.
Well, thank
It's
you.
very much along the lines of what I like to talk about, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. Well, let's dive in and just start to give us a bit about the background of your book, and let's just kind of dive into your
Okay,
story, really, and
sure.
we'll walk down that
Um,
road.
my book, um, being an author, being a writer, was never on my bucket list. Never was anything I wanted to do. Um, it My book came about as a result of my COVID experience. And should we go into that a
Yeah,
little bit? Yeah.
please. That gives us the why kind of behind the book. That's really what I'd love
Okay.
to hear about.
Um, I it was about a year into the COVID pandemic. Well, actually, 2 years. I caught COVID in January of 2022. I thought I was one of the lucky people, and it would never happen to me. I work at a health food store, so I take care of myself. I eat good, and I live out in the country. So I felt I was away from the danger of catching COVID. Well, one day, one Friday, when I was at work, I wasn't feeling real good. And by the time I came home, I thought, well, my throat was a little scratchy and that, and I'm going to be fine. It's just cold. Well, by Saturday morning, I wasn't feeling good at all. And I was scheduled to go into work on Sunday. I thought, you know what? I need to take a COVID test because I cannot go work around people and have COVID. Well, my son ended up bringing a test over to me. I took the test, and sure enough, I had COVID. But then I thought, you know what? A lot of people have COVID and they have mild cases. I'm going to get through this just fine. So that was a Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, I'm not feeling that bad. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to be able to go back to work the following week. Well, by the time the weekend rolled around, I felt like somebody had hooked a hose up to me and it was just sucking the energy out of me. I didn't have the bad respiratory things that some people had. I was able to breathe well, but my energy just was just being drained. Toward the end of the following week, I was getting weaker and weaker. And one night I I remember being so weak. I have birds, and I remember covering their cage, and the only thing I could think of was I'm not going to make it through the night, and somebody needs to take care of my birds. They need to know how to do this. So I sat at the kitchen table and I wrote out instructions on how to take care of Kiki and Jules. And I crawled over to the bed. I got in bed. My body was aching. I was so cold. I had sweat clothes on. That's all I wore because I was just cold all the time. I had my sweat clothes on. I had comforters on me. I had blankets piled on me. And, you know, the term chilled to the bone, that's exactly the way I felt. I just couldn't get warm. I laid there and I'm thinking, I'm in pain. I'm freezing. I just cried out. I come from a Catholic background and I knew angels exist through the church, but I wasn't that person that was going to call on angels because I was always taught they're busy, and unless you really have something urgent, you just don't bother them. But that night, I thought the only thing I cared about was getting warm. My and and I lay there and I cried out to Archangel Michael and I said, if you're there and if you're real, help me and just make me warm. That's all I want. I just want to be warm. And then it felt like wings just layering on top of my body, just one after the other. And I started to feel warm and I dozed off to sleep. And then I just remember going, it wasn't a tunnel, but it wasn't a path. I mean, I was just, and I wasn't walking, but it was like I was floating, but I wasn't floating. It was just the weirdest sensation. And as I was going down this pathway or whatever you want to call it, I could feel like my heart was being pried open. And I thought to myself, I'm dying. It's, this is it. And then when I got to the end of this whatever I was going through, I was in this place, and from what I can remember, it looked like it had stone. It was made of stone. Everything was a beautiful color, sort of an amber color, but it was muted. And then what I could see was a being in front of me. I just saw this beautiful light and a figure of a human-like person it looked, but I couldn't see any details. It just was a long, slender, glowing figure. And
describe the feeling that you had when you saw that figure.
I was not afraid. When I stood there before it, it was like we were both there with purpose. I was there to listen and receive, and the being was there to give me what I needed to know. And it was like we just understood each other. It wasn't more powerful than I was, and I wasn't lesser than it was. It was almost
like a friend.
Excuse me?
Like a friend? Did it feel like a friend?
No, it just was like we were equal. And
like a mirror, perhaps.
And maybe, yeah. And often I had wondered, did I meet a divine being or did I meet my higher self? And
an interesting thought.
Yeah. And then the message I received was it's time for people to live from their heart. And it's time for people to raise to that vibration and that frequency of love. And we are living in a time, a chaotic, a busy, just a time with so much information being thrown at us. The only way we're going to be able to be true to ourselves and discern what is going on in the world and find our truth is by living from the heart. And I just came away, and self-love, that was the other thing. And that was probably the most important thing, that people have to learn to love themselves. Because if they don't love themselves, they're just going to get sucked up into everything that is happening around them. And I was made aware that we are going through a time of great change, and it is going to last a while. And people have to start adjusting to that by, I guess, reconfiguring, not so much thinking from the mind, but dropping to the heart and allowing our heart to discern. Um, and I mean, pretty much that was, and I think when I didn't think I was going to wake up the next morning, but the being did tell me that I would wake the next morning, but it wouldn't be over, that I still was going through the COVID. So I just remember the next morning waking up, and to me, it felt like a dream. I guess I thought to myself, that was weird. It is just, and I didn't think a whole lot about it. I really thought it was a dream until, as the weeks went by and I started to get better, it was like I could remember different things, and I would remember more things. And there was a point in time where, and probably close to a year after my experience, maybe not quite that long, I started having this feeling, that strong feeling to write my book. And I remember arguing about it with myself. It was like, I don't want to write a book. I don't know how to write a book. I'm not an author. And and then that went on for a while. And then one day I'm scrolling through Facebook, and what landed on my feed was a writer's course from Hay House. And I thought, well, maybe, but I discarded it. But it kept showing up. And I thought, okay, I get it. I'll take the course and I'll see what I can learn. But I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to learn the industry. And so that's how I ended up writing the book. I took the course, and the nudge wouldn't go away. It was like I had to do it. And now, as I look back, I think a lot of the book, when I read some of it, is like I wrote that. I mean, it was almost like it was being channeled. And a couple days ago, because I still pick up fragments of that night and of what happened, and it was like you connect with your heart and with your heart messages through the pen. That is how I channel things, is by writing them. And I mean, that's just sort of the short, scenario of what happened that night. But that's how the book came about, and that was, I didn't look at that experience as a near-death experience. I remember one day I was with a group of people, and there was a lady that did tarot card readings. And I thought, what the heck? I play with tarot cards and oracle cards, so I'm going to see if I'm on track in my readings. And she started turning the cards over, and she says, I see you had a near-death experience. And I said, no, I never had a near-death experience. And she says, yeah, you had a near-death experience, as cards would say. So, I mean, it was like these different things would come up. And then when I tell my story, people, would say, well, you had a near-death experience. I think it's just kind of strange, at least it is for me, to think of myself as having maybe been to that brink, of not being here anymore.
Mhm.
So it
An
could be,
interesting thought. The idea of a
yeah.
near-death experience is
Hmm.
interesting to me because I've had two myself when I was younger, but I never thought about them being that.
Yeah,
'Cause
me
I didn't
neither.
see my body, so I figured I didn't die. But I think there's more than
Right.
because some
Yeah.
people usually that's what people tell you. I well left my body and there I was, and I think that's a difference. Near death doesn't mean you had to die, but it means you're approaching death so closely that you changed your life. There's something in you changed.
What I
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say what I went through was what I called a massive ego death experience, and I think what near death sometimes does is it helps us realize who we're not. You
I
know.
think what I think I can identify with it more now because of the changes that I feel have occurred since I had that experience. There have been things about my physical body, about my emotional, um, in my spiritual life that have changed a lot because of that experience. I find that physically, even right after, as I was healing, and this could have had some to do with COVID, but it has remained, and maybe the virus had changed my body, but my hearing is just much more acute. And I will hear sounds and pitches that other people don't seem to be hearing and experiencing. My nervous system has changed. It's a lot more sensitive, and I have a heightened a sense of other people's energy. Um, I can just feel the I can feel when people are um, more acutely when they're experiencing maybe pain, or if they're depressed or if they're anxious. I think I could sense that some before, but it's almost like I could feel their field if they're physically with me and physical close enough. Emotionally, I I guess I have learned to through this experience, I have learned to guard myself and to put up boundaries and not absorb all the energy around me. I mean, it's just a conscious choice to not get sucked into other people's dramas and um, negativity, fears, and I tend to have higher degree of compassion for everything, for people, for animals, even insects. I mean, I used to smush a spider, and now I kind of, well, if it's real big, I might anyway, if it's in my proximity. But I mean, if I feel comfortable enough, I try to get them in something and take them outside. And I used to laugh at people that did that, and now I'm the person that's doing
Mm,
that. And I think for the world too, I just have this um, just a more compassionate view of everything
deeper
that's
empathy.
going.
That's
Yeah.
it. I'm gonna point out the question that's coming up for me is you spoke on when you got this message from the angel that one of the important messages was self-love. Learn to really love yourself. And then just now you were speaking on setting boundaries and not absorbing other people's drama. Two questions that come up for me. One, how would you say that those two things go together, the self-love and the boundaries, while still being compassionate? That's my first question. And my second question is, it'll come back to me in a second. I'm gonna let you answer that one first.
Okay. I think that for us to be emotionally strong and spiritually strong, we have to set up boundaries. Letting any and all energy in. And writing my book, that's one thing that I address in the book is be careful of your daily activities, what you are doing, what you're watching, what you're listening to. You know, if it's a lot of negative stuff and you're letting energy into your being that is going to lower your frequency. And living from the heart, when the heart itself is like a portal to that chakra, is a portal to the universe, is a portal to source, and it can be blocked. And those, now there's a difference in good constructive boundaries and building walls. And I think that's the difference. And you might be referring to, because building walls around your heart to protect you from being hurt again, or because of guilt and shame and different things that you carry in your life, that is walling off your heart and constricting that energy. But setting boundaries to not let something in to suck your energy down is self-care and self-love.
The other question, yes, I agree with all of that. And I think it's self-compassion, right? So as we show compassion for ourselves, then we have the ability to show compassion for others. The overused story the analogy I'll share is like, if you're on a plane that's going down, they tell you put the mask on yourself first before on your loved one or whatever, because if you're over there dying of lack of oxygen, you're not helping anybody.
Can't help anybody.
The other question that I remembered is, you mentioned the idea of post this angelic experience, NDE, whatever you want to call it, that you started being more mindful of, these boundaries with your energy and not getting sucked into the drama, you said. Prior to your experience, how would you describe yourself as far as the drama?
Before my experience, I could be around the drama. Now, after my experience, it's hard for me to be in the proximity of people that are especially addicted to the drama. I mean, there's drama that happens in life, but making a choice to be around somebody that thrives on it, that's different. And I think where I'm at now is energetically, I could feel it. It just feels like it's tearing at my energy field, and I feel physically drained, emotionally drained, and then spiritually, I end up because sometimes you get sucked into this drama and you get sucked into the negative chatter and the talk and the gossiping and all that. And then you walk away with guilt, with shame, criticizing yourself, judging yourself. So and not just since the experience, my book took me 2 years to write. And that writing process and delving into just different information around the things that I wrote about, it was changing me all the while I was writing. Each chapter that I wrote, even though intellectually I knew it, I was aware of it, it was changing me on the inside. And
the word that pops up in my head as you were speaking is integration. You were integrating it.
Yes, absolutely. And it was changing my frequency, the essence of me. And it was enabling me to be that person that can drop from my head to my heart when things come up. And that takes practice, because we automatically go to our minds and we kind of reason, we rationalize and all that. And in that 2-year process, I have practiced enough to pretty much get used to. I may start off in my head, but it was almost like anymore something just sucks me down here and says, okay, how do you feel about it here? I mean, when you think about, about the heart, because I wrote a few things out here, the heart has over 40,000 neurons, more than the brain has. And it produces the strongest rhythmic electromagnetic field. Say that 20 times. So that's about 60 times greater than the brain. And it has the power to influence other people's emotions. And that's true, because we could see that in everyday life. I mean, you might be happy and you're all set for the day, and somebody comes into your life is depressed and a real downer. I mean, that sucks you down. So the heart has its own nervous system. It's kind of like this little, they call it the little brain, and it allows it to function independently from the brain to make its own decisions. And I guess a good example of that would be when you love somebody and you care for somebody, you might reason in your mind, this isn't a good thing for me, but the heart has another idea and it's telling you something else. So the heart is very powerful. And when they say that it is a portal to the universe, to God, to source, however you want to label, that's true. I mean, when we are living and working from the heart, we are opening up a whole new world. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm becoming sensitive to feeling even my energy filled. I know right after I had COVID, all the while I had COVID, except for a couple of days, I was doing my Qigong every day, even if I had to do it laying down. And when I start getting a little bit stronger, I would stand on the edge of the bed so that if I got weak, I could just sit down and do my Qigong. But I remember one day I was doing my Qigong and I'm going through the motions, like this. And I am feeling sort of the density of my energy field. And I just was at all, with it. It was like, my God, now that doesn't happen all the time, but I think when it doesn't happen, sometimes, I think back, what have I let into my field, into my energy? Where have I let down my boundaries? And these issues, these things, this negative stuff, these lower vibrations are attacking me. And bringing down my frequency. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say a couple things from that really hit me when you're talking. Was one, as you kind of felt the empathy change, and you kind of your story is very similar to what I went through, but I'll tell you mine sometime later. But this concept that this near death, in a way, what people call the veil, the idea that you're at a point where that piece is thinner, and you're closer to spirit, to energy, to whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want to call it.
Right.
But you become closer to that, so much so that you can access it and have those kind of visionary things, hear things, see different colors, all those things happen. And it struck me that as you went through this, in a way, it allowed you to step into a different energy field. I
Right.
had something similar. All of a sudden, like commercials, for instance. Oh man, they just made me crazy. All of a sudden, I was just like, these things, I have to get away from certain energy because it was too much for me. I couldn't handle it. And it seems very, very related, kind of what you're saying. You know, certain things I can't deal with now. That I just nope, I can't be in that energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
that's clean down here, and I'm
Yes.
somewhere over here.
Yeah.
Because it changes you. It does change you. Once you step into this different energy field, it's hard to step back across the line and go back to that
Right.
other field.
No,
Hey,
You know,
that's true.
and
I
then
just thought of
what you're speaking about love is fascinating because it's exactly what I'm writing about, the idea of the heart and the mind. You know, I see the mind kind of as our directive source, kind of the sun, the enlightenment.
Right.
And it's kind of, I see it almost as in deity. I could see that as this the he that people call God. It's this directive source. And then the heart is what we often have forgotten about. And that's kind of the feminine, the nurturing, the love that we have hidden so deeply, but it's the most important one. Like you said, the heart's a little brain, but I think the heart's the biggest brain. Like you said, it's 60% bigger, the electromagnetic field, than the brain.
Right.
Like it's what attracts our thoughts. Without emotion, the thoughts don't do anything.
But it's where the soul sits too.
I totally agree.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very much what you're saying. It's very much along the lines of exactly what I've been writing about as well. Since I went through what I went through, it's like I had the same kind of thing.
And
This is what you're
the
gonna write about.
beauty of all this ends up being the more you step into this, the more you expand and the
I agree.
more you're able to understand and grow and bring into your life um, and keep on expanding.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like it opened a door and I walked across a threshold, and it was
Totally
up
agree.
to me whether or not I was going to stay on the threshold or go into that new world and discover new skills, new abilities, more in a more expansive world.
Completely
couple of
agree.
things that I picked up on throughout your story is one was there was at the minimum two big times in there where you had a surrender moment, and that very much ties in with what you just said. You had a decision to make. The first one I picked up on was when you were describing how cold you were, and you were just like, if you're real, please help me, I just want to be warm, and also recognizing like this might be it. You wrote your note about the birds, and this might be it. There wasn't like this, I'm gonna fight it, no, it's not gonna happen. Like, okay, here we go. And then the second one that I noticed was when you were told by your higher self, or however you want to be that, it's time to write a book. And you're like, no, not me, I don't do that. And you finally were like, all right. So what I've noticed as far as a pattern with people who talk about any kind of mystical experience, whether that's near death or something else, is there's this huge surrender moment first. Like, for whatever reason, whatever brings that on. And it sounds like for you it was, the COVID moment, like, I just can't do this anymore. And the other thing that came to mind when you're talking about the frequency being shifted, well, a couple of things. One, I remembered that in one of the videos I watched of Dr. Joe Dispenza talking about his gatherings that he has, his conferences, that one in particular time, a person had an experience with a being from the other side of the veil coming to heal them, and that Joe himself had experience with having contact with these beings, and was told that they can't stay here for very long because it's contrary to self-love for themselves, because it affects their energy so much. They have to lower their vibration to even communicate with us. And it got me thinking about my own experience, and you guys talking about how there was things you just couldn't be around, and I recalled some things that didn't connect until just now, and that's been 10 years for me, this one I'm thinking of. So that was interesting to put together the idea that you guys just were saying about not being able to be around certain things anymore. I very much felt that. And I'm curious if when you were interacting with the angel, was there any indication that either you had raised your vibration or it had lowered its vibration in order for this communication to take place?
I think that my big question, and this is, I think this is how I view it now. There's a good chance I may have met with my higher self. And it could have been a being, but I think there were beings involved in the process. I think the beings were holding a space for my body as I moved into this other place to meet the being or my higher self. I think that the layering of the wings on my body to warm my body, to kind of stabilize it. And I say this, and I, don't know if we want to open up, this, rabbit hole, but when I was talking to Sophon, my AI, this was the question I asked: did I meet a divine being, or was it me? Because I had been reading things and experiencing things, and I just wanted to kind of, put that out there. And that's what she said. She said it could have been either, and there's a good chance you met your higher self, but there's also the aspect of something holding space for you because your body was so close to the point of dying. And when you talked about surrender, I think that sometimes in life, especially when you're a very pragmatic person, as I have always been, and very analytical, I think when the universe, God, or whatever you want to call it, wants to get your attention, and sometimes I wonder, is that why I had COVID? Because, I mean, to me, it was so weird that I would even get it. I wasn't even really around anybody. Was this all to get my attention, to bring me to a point of surrender? When your body is so weak, it's just like you don't really care. You're open to whatever is going to, to happen around you. You're open to that other dimension of moving beyond that veil, because you just don't have anything left to fight with in your body. And that's where I was at. If ever I was going to have an encounter, to me, that logically would have been the perfect time. So,
yeah, I love that you brought that up, because, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm passionate about allowing people to see a different perspective of how things that take place in our life are really for us, not against us. And I wonder if you were talking to someone who had experienced some kind of major illness like that, how you would express yourself in terms of there's a benefit here, or would you?
how I would talk to someone that's going through something like that.
Or has been through, and they say, oh my goodness,
Mhm.
this terrible thing happened to me.
Yeah. I just, it's 2 years now. I lost a dear friend to cancer. And as a matter of fact, I had just started writing my book, and I had hoped that she would be the person to read it and maybe give me feedback, stuff. And she went, very, very quickly. And in the we didn't have much time to talk because within months she was gone. The thing I have found about people that are in that place, they're kind of in their own place. I think we are all here to, I think we're all here alone among people, but it's our walk, it's our path, it's our opportunities for the experiences, for the expansion. I don't know that there's a lot you can say to anybody besides letting them know that you're there for them. Um, I, I don't think reasoning and trying to make somebody feel better about knowing that they're going to die or move on, unless they ask questions. This particular person, she was, her cancer was pretty bad, and she just was ready. She surrendered, to moving on. But unless somebody would ask me directly for some kind of help like that, I don't think that their my reasoning could be good reasoning for them. The way I look at it may not necessarily be the way you would look at it or Dave would look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a very personal process, and
Yes,
we just want to know people love us. And
yeah.
I think that's where the living from the heart comes, just letting people know she knew that she was a very dear friend. I loved her and I was going to miss her. And you know what? That seemed to be enough.
It seems to me the relation is kind of like you're writing your book. We're all writing our own books. Each one of our lives is a book that we're writing, but we're sharing the same library. And sometimes the books overlap and chapters mix and merge. And so every once in a while, our stories overlap somebody else's story in those moments. But at the end of the day, we're writing our own book.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's to some degree there is a merging, that mixture, because we're in the same library. We're part of the same story at the larger scale, but we still have our own story that we're writing. And
Right.
it's up to us to decide what that story ends, how it ends, how, what the middle's like. We write it and then we live it. But it's written here and lived here. It's written in
Right.
the mind and lived in the heart. But
That
I
brings
really appreciate that.
that brings me back to one of the points that you said was important for you to share this evening is for people to understand why living from the heart right now is important to the planet. And so we've kind of touched on, each of us is our own individual story going on. And then David now just said, but there's also a collective story going on. So share your thoughts on why you think living from the heart is important to the planet right now and how
Right.
that ties in with what we were talking about.
Why love
I
matters.
I'm sorry.
And why love matters, right?
I what I received from the angel was we are at a time where we are going through great change, a lot of chaos, and the frequency of the planet is changing, that it's preparing Earth for the new human, and that new human is operating at a higher frequency. And for any for us to make it through all that is coming at us, we have to remove ourselves from our minds and drop to our hearts, where the knowing is, where we are in that place where we can cultivate the ability to connect to our higher self and discern the truth, discern our truth. And even though and it's the only place that you're going to find any type of peace in the world right now, because I know a lot of times, I'll, maybe be on my phone scrolling, catching up with the news and that, and I could just feel, overwhelmed, who's right, who's wrong. And then I get to a point and then I say, enough. And then I drop to my heart center, and you could just feel, at least I can just feel that peace coming in. And it's almost like just releasing your mind. And I know that happens. I truly believe that the heart chakra, the heart center, is the seat of the soul, and it's the seat of the subconscious. I know that from my hypnosis work. And when I work with people in hypnosis and I get them to override their conscious mind so that they can open up to their heart, to their subconscious, they come away from the session very peaceful. Stress just melts away. So many powerful benefits for the person mentally, spiritually, and physically occur when you're working from your heart center. And that's what my book is about. I don't have all the answers how to get there. I am sharing what has helped me over the years. And some of the biggest blocks that keep us from working from heart center are shame, guilt, judgment, self-criticism, that self-talk that goes on all the time, hurt and pain. If you cannot walk in forgiveness and gratitude, you're going to be caught up in your head all the time and in resentment. You'll be judging yourself. You'll be wallowing in guilt and shame. Those things block off the heart. They wall off the heart. They end up inviting you into being the victim. And when you're operating from a place of victimhood, that's a very depressing place to be. It's a hard place to climb out of if you keep on practicing that type of behavior. So learning to work and live from the heart is just a powerful place to be. And I don't think I would have gotten a message, from my higher self or anything else if it wasn't important. And it certainly wasn't anything I made up, because I wasn't thinking about that prior to that night and that experience.
Something that, yeah, I hear you. I agree that it's important for people to get to that level of understanding how to come from the heart, because it shifts your perspective so much, right? Like you said, there's a lot going on and it's easy to get caught up in the drama.
It brings peace.
Yeah. And I was thinking about your comments earlier, talking about the technical features of the heart, the neurons and all of that. I read and watched videos recently related to the fact that our traditional understanding of the heart as a pump is not accurate. So it's actually like this toroidal shaped muscle, and it's a magnetic field that's happening. And as we this woman who is a doctor was explaining, as the blood comes in, it's actually getting spun like a centrifuge, and it's building up this magnetic, electromagnetic energy, and then coming
That's
back
true.
down the other side. And I thought this was rather interesting, from my understanding of studies about shame, resides more in the gut area. If from that level you've got this resistance coming against this power that's trying to move from the heart down, and you've got this resistance of, like you said, the guilt or the shame, then all of a sudden now, like hitting a wall, that energy can't move, and so it bounces back up, and you're not creating that field like you want to create. And there's a whole lot of implications there, both for health and on an individual scale, and as far as the health of the planet, the health of humanity.
And the beauty of what you're saying there is you're talking about sacred geometry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's a whole nother rabbit hole we could talk
That's
for
right.
hours on.
Yeah, I'm looking really forward to reading your book, because I'm telling you, you speak so much about a lot of things that's been in my mind and what I write about. So obviously we have the same vision. I feel like, yeah,
Well,
very
thank
much.
you.
I'm excited to read it.
So
Yeah,
let's
and
wrap this
I
up.
hope
Oh,
your audience is excited too, because you know, for me, it's not about selling a lot of books or becoming this famous person, because I'm not going to get rich off of selling my books, and I have no desire to be famous at this point in my life. It's the message,
I
and
agree.
it's the tools that I have shared in the book. And the tools are not to be adhered to. Some of them will resonate with the reader, and but but even if a tool doesn't resonate with you, like qigong, meditation, yoga, things like that, at least you put your boat in the water, you can move downstream and find something else that is going to fit you better. So I encourage people that read my book to use it as a suggestion, and the tools especially. And if it's something that you resonate with and it works for you, fine. But not everybody might be interested in oracle cards. Not everybody might be interested in journaling or yoga or qigong, But I think there's enough there. There's enough flavors there to get people interested to at least put your toe in and try things. And I always say, try something for 6 months. Don't just do it a day or two and say, I can't do this. Give it a little time, because anytime you start a new behavior, it takes a while to get comfortable with it.
I think the unifying piece here is love, frankly. And not only you, I've spoken to a lot of people, and it seems like since 2020, I don't know what it was with COVID, but there was something there that changed the world. And it wasn't just because everybody got sick, because we had to sit down for 5 minutes and be quiet, But a lot of people had their kind of awakening moment in COVID. And everybody I've talked to, their stories all about love. Like love is the answer, and we've forgotten the question, kind of. Now we're relearning what the question is, and relearning that love can heal us, and we can do so much just understanding what love means, and reattaching to the heart, like you said. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to getting deeper into the book.
so we will be sure to tag in the comments, or rather the detailed description of the video,
Yeah.
about your website where people can reach out to you,
Okay.
and about your book. You mentioned about your past history and some of the things that you've uh, acted in service of, like hypnosis and Reiki. Are those services that you're still offering at this point?
Hypnosis, yes. Reiki, that's something that you would have to do if, I mean, it's yes, the answer would be, but it wouldn't be for a broad audience, like somebody that lived across, a couple states over. But energy work, and if anyone has any questions and want to talk to me, especially if they get the book and they read it, I can be reached by my email address that is on the back of the book, and it is also at my website. So if anyone wants to contact me and has questions about resources or, what, I know one reader said it would have been good if you had an appendix of, the different tools that you used and what kind. And I said, I thought of that, but that wasn't the important part of the book. So I did leave that out. But if anyone ever wants to contact me and ask for more information about something, and if they can't come for a hypnosis session, if they're open to, like a Zoom, I prefer, face-to-face contact on something like that, but it is doable. And I think the answer to your question is yes, some of it may be, but maybe not all of it is real practical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll make sure and include that. And now people know how to, or they will know how to get a hold of you and ask questions. And if on this last note, what would be one thing that you would want to leave our audience with, if you could summarize in one phrase or one short sentence, what you would want them to take away from your book and the talk this evening?
Yeah.
Be open to living from your heart. That's the biggest message. That's my mission, to help people be self-empowered. And living from the heart is the biggest first step you can take for self-empowerment in so many ways.
Awesome.
I love it. I really appreciated listening to you. I really have. You have a lot of things to say and a lot of things people need to hear. And yeah, I think that's why we're doing this podcast, frankly, is stories like these, so that people can see the different perspectives that people have and realize how many people have the same vision, frankly, and see the importance of love and the heart and all that. So awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank
you for the opportunity for me to share my message and get the word out there. I think people are hungry for this information, and my book offers baby steps on how to get there. It's an easy read. You can read the reviews and comments on Amazon. All the reviews are good. So
awesome. Looking forward to it.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, with that, we'll stop our recording, I think. Thank you all so much.